What is going on, everybody? It is Gis, and I'm back with another video of how to improve slash get good, in quotes, at the game that we all play, old school RuneScape. So what I'm going to do in this video is cover the basics of the game for those of you who are, completely blind to the basics. You're not really sure what's going on, how the game operates, all that good stuff. I will show you everything that you need to know about the core systems of the game. And with that knowledge, you should be able to determine what you can do in certain situations. I will give you some of the advanced tactics that you will not need all of the time, but sometimes they will come up and they will be useful. And then after that, I will give you a bossing ladder so you can use the game to get better at the game. My credentials, because who am I to tell you how to get good? Who am I? I have Infernal Cape, I have Quiver, I'm doing my Awaken and Radiant bosses. The only reason I can't get those is because I don't have money. Because for some reason they decided the way that we gate aspirational content is money. So I have to go make money before I can do those things. But anyway, I don't really need too many credentials. I think Cape and Quiver is enough, because most of you probably want an Infernal Cape and a Quiver. That's like the big thing that everybody wants to start at. After that, it's sort of just aspirational things, like go do your Awakened and your GM and your Radiant. That's sort of all that's left after you get Infernal Cape and Quiver. So, I am hopefully going to get you to that point today. I mean, I'm not going to get you your Infernal Cape and your Quiver today, but I'm at least going to give you the tools in which you can improve your gameplay to get to that point whenever you would like, because it's not a race. Don't compare your progress to anybody else's progress. Your progress is your own, and it is totally fine. You do not need to rush to the end game, because when you get to the end, there is nothing left. Remember that. Pace yourself. It is okay. So, let's start with some quick basics. What is this game about in general? So, the way I see bosses in RuneScape is they cover 3 axes that we have in the system of the game. Movement, prayer, and gear swaps. So I have some gear swaps in my inventory. I can tell you about movement, and I can tell you about prayer. So, what we need to know before we really get into like deep PvM is we can move 1 tile per tick if we're walking, or we can run 2 tiles per tick if we are running. And this is important because you can use this to measure how many ticks have passed since you have done an action or since a boss has done an action, right? So if you are moving like this, you just moved and spent 3 ticks. You spent 3 ticks moving. We went 1 tile, 2 tile. If you know a boss is on a 4 or 5 tick cadence, you know that there's still going to be 1 more tick where something is going to happen, or 2 more ticks or whatnot, right? So you can use this to your advantage, especially in downtime during a boss's attack, to reposition yourself. If you know nothing is going to happen, you can say, I'm going to spend a tick doing this. And that's how you're going to spend your tick. As far as prayers go, when we turn on a prayer, it will activate on the next available tick. It will never activate in the middle of a tick. So a tick is up here on this prayer orb. If you do want this little line, it's just the prayer plugin, and you just tell it to never turn off, and you'll always have this tick measurer on your screen. But when we turn a prayer on, I'm going to see if I can time it to the middle of that star there. You see how it doesn't immediately come on? It always waits until the next tick before it comes on. But when it's on, you're good to go, and you can swap, but it'll still only swap on the next tick. Because if we start doing this, you can see above my head the game doesn't know what the hell's going on, right? I'm spam clicking each of these. That doesn't work. We can't do that because the game operates on that 0.6 second interval. We can only do an action every 0.6 seconds, sort of, except for gear swaps. Obviously, you can do a 4-way and a tick if you really want to, but that isn't an inherent skill that you need to have. I think if you can do 3 to 4 swaps in a tick, you can kind of just do anything you want in this game. You don't have to do the crazy 8-way swaps in a tick or 2 ticks or whatever. You do not need to be at that level whatsoever to get where you want to go in this game. So as far as gear swapping goes, like I just said, whatever you can fit into a tick, all of those commands will process on the next tick, if that makes sense. So if you do equip something, say at the end of a tick, and then you go through, it's going to process those things separately, right? Because it processed that because the next tick came up, and then it's going to process that 5-way that I just did. So it's not always... You can also just screw up because you're recording now. Or your shit just lags, bro. Help me. It's going to process when it can process. You don't have to do everything so fast that, you misclick everywhere, your computer lags or whatnot. That's sort of like the basic foundation of any boss in the game. If you think about any boss in the game, it's going to operate on those 3 axes: movement, prayer, and gear swaps. and it is up to us to fit what we can in that time frame to beat the boss. And you'll see this mostly in the later content. In the bossing ladder, I'm going to ignore any boss that doesn't operate on multiple of these axes. Like if it's just a boss that you click and you wait, that's probably old content. We don't really need to talk about that. There's nothing to gain from sitting and just attacking a monster, right? You're not learning anything, you're not really doing anything, you're just standing there and waiting for the game to play itself. I'm not concerned with that. That's not how you get better at the game. So I'm going to give you all of the bosses that I think will improve your skill at the game and force you to interact with the game to a degree that some of those other bosses don't, like Barrows or, I don't know, Mole and Vorkath to a degree. Vorkath, I know a lot of you like Vorkath, but you don't really do anything at Vorkath. You kind of just sit there and wait. So Vorkath will not be in the bossing ladder. I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble if he's your favorite boss. My apologies. He's not in the bossing ladder. Spoiler alert. Okay, we have the basics covered. A lot of you know what the basics are. I don't really have to go into them. Just that you can fit your gear swaps and your prayer swaps as fast as you can, but they will process on the next available tick. So, some advanced tactics. What can we do for advanced tactics? I'm going to go run over to a rock crab. Now, a couple things that I can explain at a rock crab. The advanced tactics that you don't necessarily need to know, but it's good to have under your belt if it does ever come up. A couple of these things you might want to use in Colosseum or Inferno, but other than that, they don't really come up all that often. Some of you, if you are Iron Man, you do like your prayer conservation methods, so I'm going to sort of tell you how to do that if you do want to. But keep in mind, one-tick flicking is usually useless. You don't have to do it pretty much ever. The only time you really one-tick flick is when you're same-ticked with a mob, and you can get your protection prayer and your offensive prayer on in the sort of same window that the monster is attacking you, and I'm going to show you how you can make the monster attack you in the same window. So, the first thing I'm going to do is turn on my visual metronome over here and pop it up over my head, and if you would like my settings, there they are. I just have the number pop up above my head, and you can set it to whatever tick your weapon is set for. So if I had the Nalbert equipped, I would put it to a 5-tick count, and I would know that I am attacking on whatever tick. So this plugin actually helped me a lot with learning sort of the cadence of the game. So let me walk over to this rock crab and make sure I don't have auto attack. Okay. So now, what can we determine from this? I can determine that this rock crab is attacking me on tick 1, right? So if I wanted to same tick the crab, I would then click attack when I see tick 4, because my command will process on the next available tick. So when I see tick 4, I'm going to click, and now I'm attacking the rock crab on tick 1, and we can see that, right? Cool. I have now same ticked the rock crab. We are attacking at the same time, but I have killed it because I'm in Giga Gear. Let me take all this off. Take all that off. Okay. Walk up to this rock crab. Okay, this is actually a better example. I have 2 mobs attacking me on different ticks. So I have one on tick 3 and one on tick 1. So what can we do to alleviate this if we wanted to split them up or get them same ticked? If I wanted to get them same ticked, this would actually be kind of complicated. But if I stand under Mr. Man right here on tick 2, he is now attacking me on tick 4, and the other one is attacking me on tick 1. So if you want to change something's attack cadence and put it on a different tick, you simply step under it the tick before it would be about to attack you. It has to readjust, and then it will attack you again. But it has to spend its next tick readjusting to you, and then it can attack. So if we want to do it again, this guy's attacking on tick 1. We step under on tick 4. He misses tick 1, and now he's on tick 2. This isn't going to come up a lot. It's just something that you can sort of incorporate into your gameplay. If you need something to be on a different tick, then you can do it that way. So the next thing we can talk about is lazy flicking. Lazy flicking is way more useful than one-tick flicking. All you have to do is when you know what number is coming up, right? So we know tick 2 and tick 4, we need our prayer up. So what we can do is on tick 1 and tick 3, we can click our prayer, and it will be up. Alternatively, you can do the one-tick flicking. And this is fairly useless, but if you want to know how to one-tick flick, turn on your prayers, and when you see this line, not at the beginning and not at the end, it has to be within the tick, you then click twice on your prayer, and you have to do that every single tick. make sure when you try to one-tick flick, you are clicking in between the tick, not at the beginning and not at the end, because when you click at the beginning or the end, it's going to mess up. So what we do is we wait for this bar to be like maybe not in the middle, because then you might miss it, but like just after it starts. And then you just hold that cadence for as long as you can. And that's one-tick flicking. I'm not going to deafen you with one-tick flicking for the next 30 seconds. But just make sure you double-click within the tick, not at the beginning and not at the end. Because if you do that, then it's going to process weird and you're going to mess it up. So let me try and do it at the end and show you what happens. See, I just immediately turned it off because I did it at the end. Let's see if I can do it at the beginning. I missed. It's actually harder for me to do this now because I'm accustomed to not doing it correctly. The beginning of the tick is a little bit different. I think at the end is probably a lot more punishing, but if you wait for the bar to be over here, you should be mostly good for one-ticking. But again, this skill is not that useful in the grand scheme of things. It's not going to get you that much. It might come up in like an Inferno run, it gets you a little bit of time save, but in the grand scheme of things, lazy flicking is usually just the better way to do things. And you might be like, well, why is lazy flicking better? The reason it's better is because you can still input other commands while you're lazy flicking. So the reason, I could just show it here. I know I'm attacking on, well, I'm not attacking on tick 4, I'll be on tick 1 now, but the reason it is nice to one-tick instead, or sorry, to lazy flick instead of one-tick is because you can still input your other commands. And we know that it'll take one tick for our prayer to come up when we need it to come up on tick 1, because that's when this guy's attacking me. Right? So on these other ticks, I can just kind of like move around, do whatever, and still get my prayer up in time, right? When you're one-tick flicking, you can't do that. You are locked into clicking this button every single tick. You can't do another thing and get back here. I mean, you could, but it is very, very difficult to keep that cadence and input a movement command or input an attack command and get back up here, right? So the next thing I want to tell you guys is to play with your resolution, play with your client size, because you want to be able to access the monster and your inventory or your prayer book or your prayer thingy over here. You want to be able to access this as fast as you possibly can so you can click different things and you can click the thing that you're looking at and you can click all this stuff and you can still click back and you can click this stuff and you can click back and you're good to go, right? If your client is big or full screened or whatever, it just takes you longer to travel from your inventory to the monster, and that can really cut down on the actions that you can input that you really need to be inputting in a timely manner. All right, I think I pretty much covered everything that you might need to know. None of that was like necessarily imperative. It's just things that I wanted you guys to understand and to know. So let us get into the bossing ladder. How do we actually utilize any of this? Where can we go? What can we do? So first stop, let's head over to my friend, the rat. Alright, so those of you who have been here before, you can probably skip this part, but I do believe that Scurrius is probably one of the best places to start for PvM in general, because he's actually pretty much everything except gear swapping, but we'll get to gear swapping very shortly, 2 bosses later after this actually. But Scurrius is a movement and prayer boss, so he operates on 2 of the 3 axes of PvM in this game. And the reason why he's so good is I firmly believe that if you can deal with Scurrius, you can deal with Jad. Reason being is we know he drops these things, so cool. We have to move sometimes, right? That's very cool. We can also practice if we want to. We can practice our lazy flicking here, because we know that he operates on a 4-tick cycle, and now he's attacking me on tick 3, so I just need to click my prayer on tick 2, and it will come up on tick 3. Very cool. So we can practice lazy flicking, we can get a little bit of movement in there, we're in our prayer book, we're being pretty active. And then the other cool thing that he does is switch his attack style when he's going for his cheese sometimes. He also just pushed me back into the rocks because I'm playing with one hand. I want him to go for his cheese. There he goes, okay. So, this is the other reason he's good. You can practice this as well. Okay, so we have more movement. He's just going to make us move. Show me a prayer. There we go. So we can still practice this as well. We can get our lazy flicks in. He makes us move, he makes us switch our prayer, and he does so at a cadence that, in my opinion, is just more difficult than Jad. So if you can handle this guy, the stakes are low, you will also be able to handle our next stop. So, for those of you who have not killed Scurrius before, you haven't tried Scurrius, start here. This guy is super low stakes. You can practice your movement and practice your prayers, which is what we're going to need at the next stop. So, for those of you who do not have a fire cape yet, but you are terrified of the fight caves, or you still get Jad hands, or whatnot, if you can kill Scurrius, you can kill Jad. This boss is nothing. This boss is so nothing. But it does teach us a little bit about the game, about, you know, the big beefy guys that attack a little bit slower, and if we miss a prayer, we're going to die. So it's really important that we get our prayers correct. So this is animation recognition, and we put on the prayer. So what I want to get across here, in this game is that you need to slow down. I feel like a lot of people will just they're trying to do, you're doing too much, you know? Isn't that the catchphrase these days? Look how long this takes, like genuinely. Like, it's 10 ticks before he picks the next thing. Look at this. Look at this. We can just hold our mouse here. I don't even need to really look at him. And this is the scary Jad, too. This isn't even baby Jad. Baby Jad is even more baby than this guy. Right? If I wanted to, I could melee him down, but I'm just standing here because I want to really get across that I'm not doing anything. I'm just, like, moseying around. I can, like, walk around. Oh my god, range. Run around. Right? Scurrius is just harder than this. Am I crazy for thinking that? And Scurrius sort of does the same thing. He'll spawn his little rats, he'll spawn his little ads that you have to deal with. So does Jad. They do the same thing. I one-tick that. They do the same thing, right? You deal with them in a very similar way. So, if you can kill Scurrius, you can kill Jad. This guy's nothing. You don't need to worry about this at all. Okay. How do we leave? Oh yeah. Alright, Jad is step 2. If you can kill Scurrius, you can go kill Jad. Obviously, stats matter a little bit, but not that much. If you can kill Scurrius, you can kill Jad. Our next stop is going to be a recent addition that I'm a big fan of this boss, okay? Now, a lot of you may be familiar with this place. This is Royal Titans. And Royal Titans is sort of the first boss that introduces gear swaps, which is super, super cool. They have gear swaps and they have movement. They're not so much a prayer boss as they are the other two. Now, I don't have my mage gear, so I'm just going to have to tank the elementals to show you an example. But the reason this boss is so cool is because when we go in, we can start doing some... Enter. Start. There we go. Okay. You can run over and you can click these guys, get an attack in, and then you switch into your range gear and you start shooting them, which is super cool. Obviously, we need to protect melee on as well. And you don't necessarily have to do this to fight the boss whatsoever, but it is useful. I'm not going to be able to clear these, so hopefully they don't walk over there. Okay, nice. So now we switch back into our melee gear and we can start meleeing them. Super nice. And then, when they come up here and they do the yin-yang thing, you can even go to the yin-yang symbol, put on your range gear if you're out of melee range, and shoot them again. So this boss is the first one that sort of introduces you to what gear swapping is and what is going to be demanded of you later on in the game in certain raids like, say, Theater of Blood or the Tombs of Amascut. So, super cool. I'm just going to have to eat shit on these. I'm going to try to, like, one-take walk away from them and use one of the basic pillars of the game, movement, to sort of deal with this problem. Because I have no other choice. Whee. I need this water guy to explode. Damn it. I tried. But you sort of see the point here. I don't have to really go on, but I want to see the yin-yang, and then we will... Wait. There we go. Okay. So yin-yang, we can switch into our range gear again and just start shooting this boss. Instead of just standing here, you can also melee, but once it's over, then you can go back into your melee and start meleeing again. Super sick. Love this boss. I'm so glad they added it to the mid-game. And again, we can just switch into our range gear and attack this guy. We can also melee him and dip back and forth in between the yin-yang symbol or whatever. But then once you're off of the symbol, you just start meleeing again. Super neat, super sick. Really recommend you guys go try this boss out if you haven't before. Now, next up. Now, I'm going to include Muspah and Zul'rah in this part of the bossing ladder. They don't really advance anything on each other. They're sort of at the same level. You get a little bit of gear swapping, a little bit of prayer swapping, and a little bit of movement at both of those bosses. Now, Vorkath is usually included in this tier of boss because they sort of have a, not similar drop tables, but similar GP an hour. The reason I'm not including Vorkath is because you don't... Vorkath is just Vorkath. You learn Wook's walking a little bit there, but that doesn't translate into everything in the game. You don't really need to know how to do that. But Muspah and Zul'rah will teach you prayer swapping, gear swapping, and movement. And I know at Zul'rah now you can just click your Nox Howley and just attack it and it fucking dies, but in essence, these bosses follow all three pillars of the sort of PVM pillars that I said at the beginning of the game. Movement, prayer, and gear swaps, which is really cool. I don't have a good mage gear swap for Muspah here, but I'm still going to walk in and show you guys, if you've never seen this boss, that this can sort of be your next step after Titans, because all it's doing is adding that prayer pillar on top of the things that you were just doing at Titans anyways. So when we go in here, I'm not going to be able to freeze him, but it should be fine. Let's see if he's in melee or range. Okay, so he's in range, which is super nice, because we can just go into blowpipe. I'm probably not going to hit that hard, but we'll get there. Because blowpipe is not good here. Don't use a blowpipe or full void here, really, if you can help it. But for all intents and purposes, see, right now I'm standing waiting, but now I need to switch my prayers. Boom, I got to catch that. And when I get him into the threshold, I'm going to have to move, right? And when I get him into the threshold, I'm going to have to move, I'm going to have to switch my gear, and I'm going to have to switch my prayer, because I need to be ready for him to walk into melee range. If I can... Bro, can you... Thank you. Okay, so I have to move, I have to switch my gear, that is not my mage gear. I have to switch my prayer, and now I have to do this, right? Which is super neato. We like that. Now I have to step back, too. I fucking didn't step back. It's so pain. See, super neat. You get to do some little movement mechanics here. Switch your prayer, switch your gear, and just get used to a new boss. It's super, super cool, man. I like Muspah. Anyway, you get the point. I'm not in gear to do that. But that's another boss that operates on the three pillars, and that's one that I recommend you go to after Titans. So, to recap, we have Scurrius, Jad, Titans, Muspah, and Zul'rah. I'm not going to show Zul'rah because you can like sort of just cheese it with a halberd at this point. Muspah you can't really cheese. You can use both only if you want, but the kills are super slow, and there's no reason not to bring your switch to Muspah, so go ahead and do that. The next boss that we are going to talk about is one that probably a lot of you think is a joke, is something you can just walk over. And I'm not going to get like terribly geared for it, I'm going to do my best, but I'm just going to bring like food so I don't explode. Man, it still takes too long to get down here, even with the agility shortcuts. Anyway, we are going to the Dagannoth Kings, and you might be like, well, what the heck, dude? The Dagannoth Kings are a joke. All you have to do is safe spot Rex, and then attack the next one and attack the next one. But what if I told you... Now, what if I told you you didn't have to do that? What if I told you you could fight all three of them at the same time, and it's kind of fun? You know? Wouldn't that be cool? Hey! Why is there a GM here? Hey man, are you done? See, this is what I'm talking about though. This is a GM. That's a Grandmaster in Radiant and a Scythe with a kit on the scythe. That is a gamer, and he is at Dagannoth Kings. Why do you think a gamer is at Dagannoth Kings? It's because these guys are secretly really, really cool and really fun if you fight them all at the same time. Because remember at the beginning of the video when I was explaining the basics and the advanced tactics, we can off-tick all of these guys. So one of them will be attacking us on one tick, another one will be attacking us on another tick, and the third one will be attacking us on another tick, and we have one empty tick at the end of the cycle to sort of figure out what we're doing. And once you get them into a rotation, it's not that bad. So let's see if I can go down here and not choke. If I choke, it is what it is. I don't have potions, so I'm like very ill-prepared. You won't be ill-prepared for this, but I'm gonna still get my point across even if I die. I don't have a stamina potion either, so let me just overheal and we're gonna give it our best shot, okay? So this is why Dagannoth Kings are cool. Let's go see what's happening in the standard cave. Let's see. We go down here, we check range because usually range is first. Okay, so we can get the melee, we can get the mage. So let's do one of these. Let's tag Rex. Let's have Rex come over. Okay. And we know Rex is attacking us on tick 1, right? He is on a 4-tick cycle. So Rex is on us on tick 1. So what can we do here? Let us try and mobilize. Did we get it? No, they're same ticked. But this guy's back. Okay. The point was going to stand. I'm not going to ruin his fun. The point was going to stand that we were going to be able to then step under Rex to get Rex on a different tick than Prime, And then we could go get Supreme into the mix and start killing them all at the same time. Of course, you don't have to. This is just one of those things to use the game to get better at the game. And to use content that you think is really bad and make it good. I think, unironically, the Dagannoth Kings are really old content that really stand the test of time. Because it gets you into all three of those pillars. We gotta move, we gotta do prayer, we gotta do gear swaps, we gotta off-tick. We have to do everything that the game can ultimately demand of us to do the Dagannoth Kings in a timely manner. It's unfortunate that the GM was there. Sorry I crashed you, bro. Fainted. My bad, bro. You're definitely watching this video. You need to know how to get good. You're a GM. But, point stands, the Kings are fantastic. I would argue that the only reason I'm putting them here instead of higher, because if you do all three at the same time, they are probably harder than the next two things that I'm going to explain. But you can also just incrementally improve them, right? If you're not ready to do all three at the same time, you can just go grab Rex, grab Prime, or grab Rex, grab Supreme, or just grab Supreme and Prime, and do that first, and then bring the third one in. Or you can just sit there and just do the two different styles, right? It's completely up to you. You can also just do one style at a time. You don't even have to go all in at the very beginning if you don't want to, but don't underestimate Dagannoth Kings. I'm serious. You should really give them a try, especially if you have Fremi Elite Diary. I think Dagannoth Kings is great. I will always tout that they're great if you do them that way. If you do them the boring way, then they're kind of boring. But if you do them the really fun way, they're really fun. Anyway, next stop. Also to note about the Dagannoth Kings, you probably only want to do them on a Slayer task, and if you have Fremi Elite, because if you don't, the loot's kind of bad, but I digress. The Dagannoth Kings are still really good. Just try and do them on a Slayer task if you're going to do them at all. Which, you shouldn't block Dagannoth or skip them anyway. You should do them, because they're a good task. Now, Corrupted Gauntlet. I'm not going to go ahead and do a full run, because for the sake of brevity, I don't want to be here all day. The Corrupted Gauntlet is truly, it's like a hyperbolic time chamber. It's going to teach you a little bit of everything about the game. The only thing it doesn't demand of you is a big gear swap, right? But it is going to demand of you movement, it's going to demand of you prayer swapping, and it's going to demand a little bit of gear swapping only in the weapon. But it is still something that you have to interact with, right? It's two different menus. Menu swapping is just what we do in this game. Sometimes we have to go to inventory, sometimes we have to go to prayer, sometimes we have to go to the magic book, sometimes we have to go to the spec bar if you're still a spec bar user. You know, you just have to do a whole bunch of things at this boss, which is good. If you can master the Corrupted Gauntlet, you're probably going to be fine in most other content in the game. There will be some things that demand a lot more of you than CG ever will, such as Colosseum, Inferno, deep delving, stuff like that. But CG, regardless, is a fantastic foundation to build your skills in the game. I'm not going to deny it. Do I love this content? No. I think it's very repetitive, and I think it's very It's just for me. But I cannot deny that it does teach you about PvM, and once you get up in here and you start learning this boy, you're going to be good to go. You're going to be off to the races. You are going to be a better player exiting the Corrupted Gauntlet than when you came into the Corrupted Gauntlet, usually. Okay, next stop. All right, we are at the Desert Treasure 2 stop, and I'm going to do this from worst boss to best boss as far as learning the game goes. Yes, Duke is easier than pretty much everything that I have said, but I'm not going to leave him out because he teaches exactly one thing. One thing this boss does is teach you a little bit about movement and not losing ticks, okay? Now, what Duke really hammers home, I'm not going to do this whole kill, but what Duke hammers home is that tile skipping is your friend. Like, you can just sit here and do this, and you don't get hit by the microwave, right? So, it teaches you that skipping tiles is good, right? It teaches you that standing in a shadow is bad. It teaches you that getting microwaved is bad, right? And when you're actually fighting the Duke, what he teaches you is to avoid tick loss. You don't have to avoid tick loss for any reason, really. It's just bad to lose ticks, which loses a lot of damage. For instance, let's say we're using Emberlight at the beginning of Duke. We suddenly have a 5-tick Emberlight because of how Duke operates. He operates on a 5-tick cycle. We have to step back every time he slaps, we have to step back, which forces our weapon to also be 5-tick, right? And a 5-tick Emberlight is just going to be worse than this thing. So what he does, and then again at the end, if we are using a 5-tick weapon when he's on a 4-tick cycle, we aren't properly utilizing the windows that he is giving us to hit him back. So then we would need a 4-tick weapon such as the Emberlight. So bringing both is actually better than just using the one, because tick loss is bad. We're losing, 10 to 20% of our DPS. And God forbid you're using a blowpipe and you lose ticks. If you're using a blowpipe and you lose ticks, losing a single tick is losing half of your damage, because this is a 2-tick weapon. So faster weapons are always inherently harder to use, in quotes, because you're going to lose ticks. And losing ticks is losing damage. And losing damage means more time for mistakes and more time for the boss to kill you instead. So that is the only reason I'm going to mention Duke. He is just a punching bag in the grand scheme of things. But he does somewhat teach you that losing ticks is bad and movement is good. You can skip hazards by running. And that's sort of it for Duke. So let's go to the other guys that are a little bit more interesting, shall we? Also to note, if you need a guide on any of these things, you can find them on my channel as well. For most of these things. I don't have a guide for like Scurrius or Jad. I feel like those are fairly self-explanatory. But Muspah I do, CG I do, all the Desert Treasure 2 bosses I do, and some of the next stops that we're going to go to I also have guides on. So just wanted to self-plug there. Make sure you check out the guides if you do need them. The Whisperer. What does the Whisperer teach us? Well, the Whisperer is a prayer and a movement boss. It's not going to demand that we gear swap because we're just going to be in mage gear for the whole time, but it does demand that we access our prayer book, and it demands that we access the movement of the game. And basically how this operates is she does a cadence of 3 attacks, and as you progress into the fight, she will change the way she attacks you, and the tentacles will spawn and you have to dodge out of the way. So pretty interesting boss to get used to that, to get used to accessing your prayer book and movement. Moving? I was going to say movement and moving, and it came out moving. So Whisperer makes you moving. If you do the moving well, you do the moving well and you win the boss. She is great at teaching you prayer swapping and movement, accessing this menu and clicking on the ground as well. Access the menu, do your triple flick, click the floor, do your triple flick, and then click the floor. And then in Rage, it's actually super neat. You get to do, she does 2 attacks of the same style and then switches to the other one, and you have to do move, move, swap, move, move, attack, swap, move, attack, swap, and you just go in that cadence. Super nice, super cool boss. If you do like magic and you like the Whisperer, good for you. This is a good boss to stop and like learn how to access your menus and move and attack and do all the things. Try not to miss ticks. Good boss. I'm a fan. But let's go to one that I find very boring, and the current awakened one that I'm working on. Side note, dude. I got this boss to 2%. 2% on like my 6th Awakener's Orb. I flubbed. A rock landed on my head and I exploded. Because for some reason I thought I killed him and I just didn't move out of the way of the cross rock that falls on your head. Anyway, Leviathan. What does Leviathan teach us? Sort of similar to the Whisperer. We have to access our prayer book. We're in full range gear. We have to access our prayer book. Ignore my Awaken tiles. I just have to do this for Awaken. But we have to access our prayer book. Isn't this fun? Don't you guys want to be here? Look at my floor. It's beautiful. Once you're done with this bossing ladder that I'm giving you, you can get to this point. And it's so fun, dude. I hate this, by the way. This is boring. I don't hate it. The setup is kind of annoying for Awaken Leviathan, I'm not going to lie. I just want to do the Enrage phase. But anyway, I digress. So the base Leviathan, it teaches us to access our prayer book, make sure we're getting our flicks, access our magic book, get a stun on the boss, move, shoot, deal with a mechanic, do more movement. We got to do more movement. We got to put our rocks back there. We got to do lightning skip, and then we got to dip out and we go back into our prayer book, and we're doing more prayer flicks, attack the boss, prayer flick, attack the boss, move out of the way of the rock, attack the boss, do some prayer flicks. Great boss to put you in another hyperbolic time chamber to get used to menu swapping, movement, and prayer. Thumbs up. Next stop. And remember, these are in order from like least to most useful, I think. Last stop is, of course, Vardorvis. Now, Mr. Vardorvis teaches us similar things to the Leviathan, I would say. Except I think Vardorvis demands that you do so in a bit quicker fashion. So what Vardorvis sort of forces you to do is actually something that Duke forced you to do. I guess he didn't force you to do it, but it was good to know. Is that you need to use the fact that you can run 2 tiles to skip hazards. Because when we skip hazards, doing an axe skip, like so, is good. We like doing that, because taking no damage is better than taking damage. So this boss will also force you to sort of learn how that works, learn the system of the game, you know that the axe spawns, and on this tick it's gonna swing, so on that tick that it's gonna swing, you gotta do bop, and then you do bop, and you skip the axe, right? All the while, you are in your prayer book, you're attacking the boss, sometimes a head will spawn, you have to switch your prayer to catch it, switch back to your prayer, and move sometimes, and then move back, and then switch your prayer, and do this, and attack the boss, and make sure you're not losing ticks to the best of your ability, and make sure you're not dying to the best of your ability. Now, while Vardorvis is a little bit simpler in quotes, I think the speed at which things happen and the layering of the mechanics is a little bit tougher than the way Whisper and Leviathan are presented, where you sort of have these obvious windows where you're allowed to do the thing that you need to do. But the fact that an axe can spawn under you at the same time that a head can spawn, especially in Rage Phase, and let's say an axe spawned here and here and here, you're like, oh no, what do I do? You're forced to do the axe skip. You can't just move here and just stay there because there's no axe over here. You are forced to learn how to do these things, which it doesn't happen always with other bosses, that you are forced to learn how to do one of these advanced mechanics that I called them at the beginning of the video. So Vardorvis is the last stop, but a lot of people's favorite Desert Treasure 2 boss is Vardorvis. It is probably my favorite Desert Treasure 2 boss. Duke is boring, Leviathan's boring, and Whisper's pretty boring. But Vardorvis is always pretty engaging. You have to stay on your toes, you have to stay pretty engaged with the game, and he's going to force you to learn how to do these things. He's going to force you to learn to interact with your menu while you're moving and while you're attacking the boss. Next stop. Hello, old friend. So, Yama is going to be our next stop after the Desert Treasure 2 bosses. And you might be wondering, why? And it's because Yama operates on every single pillar of what the game is built on. It's movement, it's prayers, it's gear swaps, it's menu swapping. It is... The ceiling at Yama is so high, but the floor is low enough that you can pop in here and you can start learning whenever you really want to. If you have a purging staff, you can come in here and you can start learning Yama. But if you really want to get into Yama, you can start getting the more advanced things, which is the Donofly method with the orb fix tiles. You can get into the Radiant contracts. You can get into Robo-Kite. Like, so many incredible methods have arose over the course of, I don't even know how long this boss has been out. Maybe 6 months now? However long, I have no idea. But this is a fantastic boss, design-wise, to me, in its base variant, especially if you're soloing. This is going to teach you so much about accessing your menus and gear swapping and prayer swapping and dealing with mechanics on the fly and pacing yourself to know that you have X amount of ticks to deal with the orbs that are spawning and still make it over to this tile. You have to do a lot of planning to make sure that you're not on the wrong side of the arena. You can't just go in here, click the boss, and wait. You have to think. You have to make actions that sometimes you get punished for. Sometimes you'll miss things. But this boss doesn't immediately punish you for missing those mechanics. It's just going to deal 40 damage. You have to heal up. You're going to lose a little bit of ticks, but whatever. You're going to learn. That's going to sit in your head, and you're going to be like, okay, don't do that again. That was bad. Let's make sure we do it this way next time. It's not one of those bosses like Fasani's Nightmare, for instance, that's just going to one-shot you because you messed up something. Which, by the way, Fasani's is also not included in this guide because I don't love that if you make one single mistake on Fasani's, you kind of just die. I'm not going to say it's a bad boss that can't teach you anything. It just feels bad to be taught by that boss. It would be like going to school and every time you got a question wrong, like somebody like clapped your ears and made you dizzy and you got knocked out on the fucking desk or something. So I'm not going to include Fasani's Nightmare because it's just not an enjoyable learning experience. It's kind of a frustrating learning experience, which we don't love. I like the bosses that teach us and use little bits of damage, like somewhere in the 40s, like, oh, that hurts, but I'm not out, right? I'm hurt, but I'm not out. I'm going to fix that, and we're going to go back. I'm going to make sure I don't mess that up the next time. Okay, so if you want to, you can solo this, you can duo this. If you and your buddy just want to get in the time chamber together and hold hands 5 feet apart, then you can do that, all right? So Yama is up after the DT2 bosses. You do not have to master these things before you go on to the next thing. If you feel that you have done enough on the previous bossing ladder stuff, you can just continue on with your life. All right, next up. Oh, that was a hike. Well, this is sort of the last stop, everybody, before I send you off to the big leagues. This is the Doom of Mokhaiotl, the Delve boss, and somewhere I have spent far too much time. if you do not believe me. I went very dry at this boss. It took me 1,101 deep delves to get my Avernic Treads. My PBU was 23, and I did 3,696 overall kills at this boss. This boss is truly the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. I'm going to put Delve 1 through 8 at this point in the bossing ladder. Once you can do everything previously mentioned, you can jump in, get your 1 through 8 clear, and be on your merry way. Now, can you deep delve? I don't know. But I know if you can get your Delve 1 through 8 clear, you can do the Inferno, and you can do the Colosseum, which is our next 2 stops on the list. Once you can do the Colosseum and the Inferno, you will then be able to get your 16 plus deep delves. I firmly believe that. If you do want to stay at the Doom and really just put yourself through hell and high water to get better at the game, you can do that. I have an hour-long guide on this boss. It will make you better at the game. The layering of the mechanics is pretty good. It sort of scales with you. As you get better, the boss will get better. So if you just want to rush this content, ignore everything else that I have said, and do this boss, you can. The only thing this boss will not teach you is gear swapping. Everything else, it's going to teach you. It's going to teach you accessing your menus. It's going to teach you your prayers. It's going to teach you your movement. It's not really going to teach you gear swaps other than a couple weapons here and there. So, if you would like to stay at this boss perma, you may. You will make a lot of money, and you will get very good at the game, because this boss is very demanding in the deep delves. Doing delves like 1 through 6 and resetting, that's not really going to do anything. You have to get to delve 8 and beyond if you really want to improve, okay? Not saying you have to, but at this point in the bossing ladder, delve 1 through 8, you can do it, get that 8 clear, and reset at the very least. Once you can get your 8 clears pretty consistently, we're going to move on to the next couple stops. You finally made it. You're at the big pit of despair. You've gotten rid of your spare fire cape, and you're ready to jump in to the Inferno. A couple things I want to note about the Inferno. I think it took me 27 attempts or something like that to get my Infernal cape. I had no previous PVM knowledge. I was a little baby noob. I had a 200 mil bank. I had just bought my first BOFA, and TOA had not gotten its quality of life updates, so that raid felt like doggy fart. I didn't like it. And I was like, well, I have this BOFA. I don't really know how to do chambers. I don't like TOA. I don't like Zul'rah. Why do I have this BOFA? And then I see, Adicon, No Monkey, Exact, all of their guides pop up for the Inferno, and I was like, ah, damn it. Alright, let me give it my best shot. And for about 3 weeks, I just went in here and I learned the Inferno, and it made me better at the game in general. So, optionally, if you would like to do this content first, you can. Because the Inferno is the Inferno. There are mechanics that happen here that aren't going to happen in other PVM. So, you sort of just have to dive into this knowing that it's going to be different than anything you've ever done. But the skills that you learn in here will translate to the rest of PVM, because you'll be like, oh, that's like this, but it's easier. Oh, that's like one-tick alternating a blob, except it's easier. Things like that. And another thing I want to note about the Inferno. The stakes aren't as high as your brain is making them, okay? Once you have your spare fire cape turned into this guy, you can just do this, okay? You can just do this. You can jump in and just go get your PB. No one is looking at your gameplay, holding, a firecracker under your chair, that if you don't get to Zuck on your first try, you're gonna die. They're just gonna send you into orbit with the firecracker. You can jump in here and just get your PB whenever you want. You can just go try. Just go hit stuff. Turn on your protect range. You know that this bat's range. You've seen this bat before. You've been in the fight caves. You have your fire cape. You know what this is. This is just a bat, bro. That's all it is. And these guys, fuck these guys. These guys just die. And fuck this guy too. Come in here whenever you want. You don't have to get to Zuck your first attempt. In fact, you're not going to get to Zuck on your first attempt. But I want you to have the confidence especially if you followed the bossing ladder up to this point, that you are good enough. You can do this content. You can just jump in here, play with it, experiment with it, and do it at your own pace. It's not a race. Nobody cares how many attempts it takes you. It doesn't matter. It could take you 400 attempts. You could do the mage tank method. It doesn't matter. A cape is a cape, okay? Just do the content, give it your best shot, go whenever you want, and just experiment with it, right? Just experiment. You can get to the blob on wave 4, and the blob is like the biggest deal in the whole Inferno, in my opinion. Learning how to handle blobs and one-tick alternating and all that stuff is really important, and then the melees are probably after that. And you can get to those on wave 9, I think. So, jump in here and just try. It's totally fine. It doesn't cost you anything. Look, if you say, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, I'm going to leave now. I made it to wave 2, guys. Wave 2, Inferno PB. Boom! 24 total. Holy shit, I'm literally him. Okay? Do not make this content a monster. It's not. It's fun. It's really interesting to learn and go figure it out. So, next up on the list is the Inferno's younger brother. Are you not entertained? So the Colosseum sort of follows the same suit as the Inferno. They're similar content, but they do have their differences. So the same rule applies here. One, it technically doesn't cost you anything to jump in here. However, when you die, you do have a gravestone outside and it's going to cost you some money. But when you're learning, you get a gravestone discount. So you have a couple options. You can do the Inferno first and really use those gravestone discounts to your advantage later. Or you can just jump in here and give it a shot. If you want to get your quiver first, you want to do the Inferno first, it doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. The Colosseum is going to be a more expensive endeavor, regardless, and the Inferno will be cheaper. That's the only real difference. Some of you might not like doing the Bofa budget Inferno. It can be a little bit complicated, especially when you get to Zuck. If you start missing ticks, you're going to get more sets, and if you get more sets, you're going to get more chances for error, and if you get more chances for error, you're probably going to lose the run. But some of you might want to start with Colosseum first, and if you start with Colosseum first and you get good at it, you can make enough money to buy yourself a Twisted Bow, and you don't even have to do the Bofa run in the Inferno. You can just get a Twisted Bow and go for it. Because the gear demand, I think, for Colosseum is much lower than it is for Inferno, if you want to get a good first clear. I think Bofa is pretty much the minimum I would recommend you go into the Inferno with. If you have a Twisted Bow, cool, go ahead and use it. But for the Colosseum, I did the Colosseum with 70 strength and a whip in full void. Like, you can do the Colosseum in whatever the hell you want. It just takes a while, is all. And you can obviously use Northwest to RNG it, or you can use Southwest if you want to be consistent. It's completely up to you. I don't really see a reason to argue over the pillars. Like, who fucking cares, man? Just pick one and go for it. Northwest is kind of RNG. You can't really get the mage block all the time. Southwest is really consistent. You can solve everything, and it's fine. Doesn't matter. If you're not going to do the Colosseum past your first clear, just go to Northwest and RNG it, man. Just get your quiver and get out. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. If you want to farm the Colosseum, you should learn both, because you're going to need both at different points in time. Sometimes you need to rotate a pillar. Sometimes you'll want to, like, start over here to, like, RNG a spawn. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Pick one, go with it, get your quiver, and either stay there or get out. And I think that's sort of where all of this ends. You're going to have your Infernal Cape, you're going to have your quiver, and from here, all I can really say to you is go back to Delve and get your 16 plus GM clear, get your perfect Doom. I don't know what I'm missing at Doom, hold on. Doom. I think I'm missing the melee kill and the speed. So we're missing, oh yeah, the shield kill, the melee kill, and the speed. But I did go ahead and grab perfect Doom. I grabbed my 16 plus clear. Go grab those things. You know, CAs are sort of what comes after everything. It's get your Radiant, get your Blorva, and get GM. That's sort of everything that happens after you get Infernal Cape and Quiver. So now that you have made it here, sorry it was a little long-winded. I hope the bossing ladder was to your liking. And wherever you are on the ladder, it doesn't matter, man. Go at your own pace. Don't be scared or compare yourself to somebody else that you're not going fast enough, you're not learning fast enough. None of that. It doesn't matter. Go at your own pace. Enjoy what you're doing. If one of these bosses isn't to your liking, don't do it. Just skip it. It doesn't matter. You can pick some other boss. Just at the end of the day, I want to make sure that you're learning and you're improving at the game and you're understanding it at a level deeper than just turn on Protect Melee, click boss, and stand there, because there is so much more to this game, and it's so much more fun when you do understand all these things, and you can feel the rush of getting your first Infernal Cape, getting your first Quiver, and doing all these things. It's just, it is a really satisfying game. It's very Souls-like. If you've ever played Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne or whatever, Elden Ring, getting that boss kill that was frustrating you for 3 hours is just, it's a feeling that no other people understand. Like, only gamers understand that feeling. And I know it's nerdy, but who cares, man? That's what we play these games for, is satisfaction, feeling good, and having fun. So make sure you're doing that. If you're ever not having fun playing this game, take a break, change it up. Go work on some skills, go work on some diaries, go play a completely different game. Like, don't box yourself, okay? If you're doing the Inferno, you don't just have to stay at the Inferno. You can send one run a day, maybe one every other day. It doesn't matter. Just try when you feel like trying and go back to something else that you enjoy afterwards. But I'm going to stop rambling. I hope you enjoyed. This has been an hour-long video again. I didn't think it was going to be this long, but I love this game, and I really want you guys to love this game as much as I do and get as good as you can be at this game and improve. All right? Don't kick yourself. Don't compare yourself. You're good at this game. Have some confidence. Jump into that content. I will see you guys in next week's video. I don't know what I'm doing yet. It might be a Zul'rah guide. I have no idea, but we'll see. Anyways, like, sub, comment, all that stuff. If you have suggestions, comment it. Cool. Anyway, bye.